Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. And today we are talking about if you are a portrait and senior photographer, should you pivot to brand photography? And that doesn't mean like totally pivot. Should you offer brand photography if you are an existing portrait or senior photographer? So I'm also trying out like a new live stream setup. Why is it that I'm always trying a new live stream setup? Let me know if you can hear me in the chat if you're here live. Everything looks good on my end, so we are just gonna keep rolling. Okay, so, oh, here I can check. Is it great? Okay, I can hear myself. So, should you do it? A little bit about me. Before I became a full time brand photographer, I was a full on portrait photographer. And just to paint the picture for you, my first foray into running a photography business was charging, I think the first time I got paid for portrait photography, my friend wrote me a $30 check to take recital photos for her own recital to put on like an invitation. And I was like, this is fun. I'm going to keep doing this. Eventually that rolled into doing graduation photos for graduating college seniors. And I was just doing this for fun because I needed some extra cash to help pay for tuition. And eventually, for a college kid, I was doing pretty well. I capped out at like $150 per session. I was making bank as a college kid. Now, fast forward a little bit, when I graduated and started working my full-time job as a corporate software engineer at Apple, it was my absolute dream job. I was like, okay, I guess I'll keep doing brand photography on the side. We're just gonna keep doing that because, not brand photography, sorry, portrait photography on the side because it was fun and I needed something to do. Hi, I'm seeing all of the comments roll in. Leave your questions. I will get to each chat question thing when we get to the end. But I kept doing it for fun and I did raise my prices to like $200 for a session and eventually $300 for a session. And that's kind of where I capped out. So in this time period is where my first brand photography client found me, a local jewelry designer to SF. Hi, Peggy, if you're here. And I loved it. It was so fun. I felt like it was a really great blend of my skill sets, and I still got to take portraits as a brand photographer. So eventually, more business owners kept coming to me. I kept offering brand photography because it was fun for me, but I noticed there was a disconnect in what I was offering and then what my clients were needing the images for and what they were using them for. I'll get into that in a minute. But some indicators to me was I, in my very early days, would have some of my very early brand photography clients not come back to me for a following session. I would see them, post on Instagram and I was like, I did not take that picture. And I'm sure we've all experienced that. And over time I was like, okay, they're not communicating with me. Clearly something is not matching here. And it was because I was offering mostly portraits and not brand photography. So I will get into that a little bit later. But some key indicators, if you are considering offering brand photography and you're currently in portrait and senior. So I thought in my business, I wanted to be a senior photographer, like high school senior photographer, because I was like, it's fun, it's creative, it seems easy to market. All of these things seem great. But here are some things that I didn't like about portrait photography and senior photography, and some indicators that told me, hey, maybe I should really lean into brand photography, not only because I like it, but because it will be better for my business. So number one is I did not love how seasonal this business is. No matter if you're working with high school seniors, college seniors, it's very seasonal. College grads, you are photographing the majority of them in spring and they're back to back to back to back. If I wanted to build out a fully booked out graduation photography business, I would basically not live a life between the months of like March to June, because not only is it very seasonal, but they're graduating. Like there is a time limit on when they can do their college grad sessions, and they're college kids. So unless their parents are helping them out with this booking situation, they are booking very last minute. I cannot tell you how many people I had to turn away because I was like, we graduate next week. I literally have no more time to book you, and everybody else is busy too. So I really didn't love that. Didn't love how seasonal it was and how reliant I was on that spring semester. and I was really tired. I personally prefer to photograph portrait sessions during golden hour, so either in the morning or at night. This leads me to my next point. There is a very limited amount of time when it comes to golden hour, right? You have the afternoon and you have the morning. And if you're running late on a session and you're booking these grad sessions or senior sessions back to back, if one runs late, the rest of them run late. So I personally would never book more than one. Sometimes I would do two. Sometimes if I was like, okay, look, I got to run somewhere else. We got to be on time. But that just doesn't feel like a really good client experience to me. So I really would only book a morning session and an afternoon session. And that's how I would do it. So there is not a lot of time. So if we do the math, what you have 30, 60, maybe like 75 days of full on grad season times two. What is that? 150. You're going to cap out at 150 sessions times whatever you're doing. And that's if you're fully booked. Okay. It's a very tiring job. So just the seasonality and the schedule of high school seniors and of graduation photography made me think, okay, maybe I should lean more into brand photography. So that's like the first reason. Second, high school seniors, portrait photography, graduation photography, this is all a very emotional experience. You're documenting a milestone, right? It's a once in a lifetime thing. You are capitalizing on people's emotions. So when they are making that investment, they're thinking about it emotionally, because that's all it is. It's you're capturing memories for them. Versus brand photography, yes, there are emotions involved because just being photographed is it's an intimate experience as it is, but brand photography is a business investment. So over time, as I started booking more brand photography, I was like, okay, this is a lot easier to sell because, again, it's a business investment. As long as I can justify my pricing, why it's an investment, and how they're going to get a return, the investment is a lot more obvious. Versus when you're making an emotional purchase, you have to kind of play into that. And that I didn't love. I didn't love that for me. I'm a very data-oriented person. So me being able to very matter-of-factly state, this is brand photography, this is what you're going to get. If you implement the photos in this way, you're going to see a return on investment. Like facts. Those are all just facts. So it became a lot easier for me to sell because I wasn't relying only on appealing to emotion. Of course, there are going to be people who know, like, my kids are graduating, it's my senior year, Of course I'm going to get photos done. Like, it's an obvious thing for them. But it makes so much more sense to me to really lean into selling brand photography because it's a business to business investment rather than business to consumer, which is what all portrait and senior and graduation photography is. So that's my next reason. What else? Other reasons. Even when I'm doing portrait sessions and when I'm doing graduation photos, I found myself really enjoying and leaning into when people would bring props. So for example, one of my favorite grad sessions of all time was I was working with a nursing student and she brought like her nursing textbooks. She brought her, oh my God, what is this called? Stethoscope. I'm not a doctor, obviously. She brought her stethoscope and all these other props. And she was like, yeah, I really want to lean into these because like, it's fun. We're going to make it, about the stuff too. And it was so much fun. That type of photography and that skill is so extremely transferable to brand photography because with brand photography, what is honestly more important than the portraits is pictures of the stuff because businesses need those on-brand stock photos or detail shots, is what I call them, to market themselves. So you get to play around a lot more with props and photographing things and making sets and the location and all that good stuff. It's so fun. Which leads me to my next point. Now, don't get me wrong. I love a good system, obviously. I'm a former software engineer. When it comes to graduation photography, it is very repetitive. Same with seniors, especially when you're focused on a local area, you know how it works. People see other people's graduation photos, other people's senior photos, other people's portraits. There are the top go-to locations in every town, right? When I lived in California, obviously the college campuses for portraits, it was like 3 different parks and then the beach that have like this beautiful dead grass situation. That's what everybody wants. Everyone wants the same thing because they can see the artwork and they're like, yeah, this is great. This is the portrait that I want. So graduation photography, senior photography becomes very repetitive, which is a good thing because you can build a system around it and then you can get through sessions really fast. But there's only so much you can do to fuel your creativity when you're doing this thing day in and day out. And especially seasonally, it's a super high concentration of graduation sessions, seniors, whatever. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again. Again, great because you're going to build a system, but it stopped fueling my creativity. Now with brand photography, there are some elements of that, right? Everybody is a business owner. Most people are going to want the standard set of brand photography shots. That's what I call them, with a laptop, with a phone, talking with the client. That's the standard set. But to create a really good brand photography gallery, you really need to bring in that creativity and bring in that strategic direction. Is that what I'm looking for? Yeah, the strategic direction to really have their brand photos stand out. And that's something that I've been leaning into a lot more in the last couple of years with my own brand photography clients. I had a studio back in California, so I felt like I was getting into that routine of, okay, here's the office setup, here's the living room setup. But I started customizing each set to each client, and it really started to fuel my creativity again. So even though I use the same location for lots of things, because each business owner is unique and they each have different props and they each do different things, it makes it a lot easier to customize these sets and be more creative because that's what they're looking for. Of course, with seniors and graduations, there are ways to do the same thing, to be creative. They'll bring props, but it is still different because with seniors, they're going to see someone's photos and be like, I want that. Can you do that for me? And we're going to deliver because that's what the client wants. But with brand photography, it is in your client's best interest to create a unique gallery. And that's something that you communicate with your brand photography clients before you book them. So all that to say, brand photography is so creative and it breaks me out of that rut of doing the same thing over and over again, and it fuels my creativity. So I feel like when I was doing mostly portraits, mostly graduation sessions, I was doing a lot of stuff outside of that with my photography. So styled shoots, test shoots, just portfolio type work, because I wasn't being fueled creatively by portraits. And now I don't feel like I need to do that anymore. Of course I will if I want to, if I need it creatively, just outside of work. But I feel like I get that fulfillment in brand photography, which is so cool. And what I have been wanting this whole time being a photography business owner, I want to be fueled creatively by my job. I want to get paid to be creative. Like, that's what I want. And brand photography allows me to do that. And portrait photography, not quite. Didn't quite get me what I was looking for. So if you're looking for more creative variety and more creative challenges, brand photography is a fabulous place to be. So we've talked a lot about like the creative side, the scheduling. I also want to touch on, you make a lot more money as a brand photographer than as a portrait or graduation or senior photographer, just because the value is, it's a business expense, right? People have, well, most of the time, sometimes people have marketing budgets, but there is a separate place in your brain for a business investment than for a personal investment. Personal portrait photography is a luxury. Brand photography, yes, technically is still a luxury, but it is more necessary for business owners than portraits are for your everyday consumer. Does that make sense? So again, coming back to the sales, it becomes a lot easier to sell because literally every business owner, everyone who runs a business, not just solopreneurs, not just people that work online, brick and mortar stores like chiropractors, doctors, dentists, boutiques, retail stores, throw a rock and you're going to hit a small business. Every single business needs photos. Like that's fact. They need them, right? So it becomes easier to sell than portraits and other luxury things because you need it, right? Even in down economies or whatever, people still need to market their own business because that's how they generate revenue. How do you do that? With brand photography. It's just like, it's amazing. I cannot overstate how great it is. Okay, what else do I have? So, and let me come check the questions. How are we doing? Okay. Ooh, good. So we have a question about AI images. Let's talk about that. What's my point of view? So I actually have a full YouTube video on AI and photography. The fact of the matter is, because you can generate images with AI, people are going to be doing it. Whether that's personal portraits, well, I would maybe not so much graduation sessions, but brand photography, all across the board, headshots, whatever, people are going to be using AI to generate images. However, that is not going to affect a strategic brand photographer, because the value that I provide as a strategic brand photographer is not just in the photo deliverables, it's in the strategy. It's in the entire experience and how I guide my client through the process. They can go tell AI to generate themselves a headshot. Like, I could do that. Anybody could do that. Great, whatever. We all know that they lack a little bit of soul. They are getting better, though. I'm a huge fan of AI in other areas, just in general, because I used to be a software engineer. I like to adopt technology. But again, AI is not going to tell them how to create a strategic brand photography gallery. It's not going to direct the image and tell them what props they should bring. It'll just be very generic. It's not going to get out of the box of new ideas, because AI doesn't really generate new ideas, right? It's just building off what's already out there. It's not going to create the cohesive gallery unless that client already has the creative brain. But that is not why people, or sorry, that is why people are hiring me, because they need that direction of, I don't even know what photos that I need. They have to know what photos they need first before they go to AI to generate them. So if you are delivering a strategic brand photography experience, I'm not worried about AI. It's a great question. Thanks for asking. A lot of people ask this. Another thing that I think of looking forward, I think AI imagery is going to expand the brand photography market. Because if you think about, okay, who is using AI images? It's people that are not ready for an in-person brand photography session, or they're not ready for the full experience anyway, right? If they were, they would go ahead and book it. But AI images, like of portraits, whatever, brand photography, it's going to lower the barrier to entry for someone to market themselves, which I love, because once they start using AI generated images of themselves, guaranteed, they're going to be like, okay, these are good, but I think I need like real photos now. So once somebody gets in the door and they use that as a baseline, like, they're going to want brand photography down the line. So I feel that it is expanding the market. I almost feel like AI images are replacing generic stock photography. Like if you're going to go to Unsplash or Pexels or whatever, it's replacing that. It's not replacing booking an in-person brand photo shoot. Does that make sense? So those are my thoughts there. I'm happy to chat about AI. Okay, coming back to other notes on how to know if you are a portrait or a senior photographer, if you're ready to pivot into brand photography. You already know how to pose, people. Seniors, college grads, literally everybody that comes to you, they're like, I guarantee we've all had this experience. I don't know how to pose in front of the camera. Like, help me. What do I do? You already have the skill. You know how to take good photos. You know how to pose people that are not comfortable in front of the camera. Both very transferable to brand photography, obviously. You also are good at composition. I'm going to take a gander that you don't just deliver photos where people are centered in the frame, centered vertically, centered horizontally, whatever. Brand photography requires lots of different compositions, and as a portrait senior graduation photographer, you are already delivering those. Great. Very, very transferable to brand photography. What else? Also, just in general, if you are excited by the idea of working with business owners, working with entrepreneurs, if that excites you, if you like being around other business owners, brand photography is great because I'm surrounded by other business owners all the time. I love it. It's so much fun. It's so great. So, all in all, if you are ready to break out of seasonal work, brand photography is year-round. People run businesses year-round. And depending on who you're working with, sometimes the slow seasons for portraits, which would be like winter to early spring, are busy for brand photographers, because what comes around in November? Black Friday, holiday sales, etc. So it's year round. I do brand photography all the time. I can do it inside, I can do it outside. Well, not when it's like super cold out, but it's year round. If you are wanting to break out of a creative rut, if you're feeling like it's more same, if you want to free up your very early mornings for golden hour, your afternoons, your weekends, and you want like a 9 to 5 schedule when people book shoots, brand photography. I hardly ever take a shoot on the weekend or off hours. And if I do, I have the flexibility to be like, okay, well, I'm just, I'm going to take it easy for the next 2 days if I have to do a late shoot or an early morning shoot. All great reasons to start offering brand photography or to pivot entirely into brand photography. So now I'm getting to the end here, but if you decided, or if you watch this and you decided that, yeah, I do want to offer brand photography, I want to take it more seriously, or you already offer brand photography, but you just feel like you've hit the income cap, your pricing cap, I would love to invite you to my upcoming free webinar. It's called The 4 Systems You Need to 8x Your Revenue with Brand Photography. Like I said, I started my photography journey as a portrait photographer, charging first $30, then $50, then $150, $300-ish for an hour of portrait photography. Now my average brand photography session price is $4,000. I have 8x'd my revenue through brand photography. I've opened up my schedule. I'm in total control of my schedule, and my revenue per client is so much higher. I do less volume doing brand photography than I did with portrait photography, and I make a lot more money. So if you are ready to transition and you would like to skip over all of the trial and error of brand photography, the kind of what I mentioned at the beginning of this, come to my free webinar. It's totally free to sign up. If you are on Facebook, it's in the comments. If you are on YouTube, I will drop a comment shortly. And on Instagram, I will put it in my link in bio, but it is not quite there yet. So I'm going to come to YouTube. If you have any questions, if you are a portrait photographer or a senior photographer and you want to drop them, let me know. We have some time for that now. Let me grab this and put it in on YouTube. Join me for my free webinar. Oh, I do see some more questions. Okay, if you're new to brand photography, how to gain clients? Great question. We are actually going to cover that more in depth on the free webinar. So Haley, if you want to sign up for that, again, it's called The 4 Systems You Need to 8x your revenue in brand photography. The first system we're going to talk about is clients and lead generation. Well, giving away a little bit, but we're going to talk about like each exact revenue generating method that I use, because I use several. Here's the thing. Okay. When it comes, not revenue generating, client lead generation. When it comes to marketing and lead generation and getting clients, the way that some educators will teach is you have to go all in on Instagram. You have to go all in on like social media or on one specific thing. That is not how I teach it. Okay. We have multiple options to generate leads, to bring in new brand photography clients. That's what we're going to be talking about on the webinar. Go ahead and sign up. Because it's probably too much to get into right now, but we are going to be covering that. But anyway, all that to say, there is more than one way, right? Instagram is the obvious one as a photographer. But there's also ways to do it through in-person networking, through outreach. There's lots of different methods that I have used that work for me, and you just need to trial and test which ones work best for you. Anyway, we will cover that on the webinar. Let me come to Instagram. Any other questions? Yeah, weddings are, no, I'm just kidding. Weddings are so cool. Next week, we're going to be talking about, I'm talking specifically to wedding photographers. If you're ready to pivot into brand photography, I will share it again there, but since you're still here watching, I thought I wanted to be a wedding photographer when I was still working my corporate job. I was like, this is perfect. I can be a weekend warrior. I'll work my 9 to 5 and then I'll do weddings. I assisted, I think, a grand total of 3 weddings, and I second shot 1, and I was like, wow, I hate this. Could not be me. I am so impressed by wedding photographers. You guys can do anything. I could not. A 14-hour day where all I ate was like a granola bar, couldn't be me. It's too stressful. Brand photography is much less stressful. It very lax, very chill, very zen. Weddings are crazy. Okay. I think that covers all of the questions. If anything else comes up, you can comment on this. I will see them afterwards. But like I said, if you are ready to start offering brand photography, if you already offer brand photography and you want to elevate, come join me. The webinar is Thursday, September 18th at 2 p.m. Eastern. It's called The 4 Systems You Need to 8x Your Revenue with Brand Photography. I'm teaching you my 4 systems that I used to 8x my own revenue with brand photography. I would love to see you there. Thanks for joining live, and I will catch you on the next one.